testing the microphone, testing the mic, 1 2 1 2. I'm sorry, that's how they used to do. If you're like me in your early teens, or maybe if you're like me, maybe in your early teens, or some of you guys even in elementary school, maybe even younger, you discovered this magical reading app called Wattpad. From one click, you became obsessed, right? There were tons of books, amazing covers. Some of these covers even featured a recent winner of Love Island USA. You read, you commented, you engaged. People were even in groups, I think back in the day, communities or whatever they're called. That was a little before my time. And you were obsessed, right? You had found this reading app, and from that moment on, you started reading. Most of the time you read romance, right? There were other genres, but romance is by far the biggest genre still on Wattpad. So you laughed, you were entertained into the early hours of the morning. Sometimes you even had school the next day, and you went to bed at like 4 or 5 a.m., waking up a few hours later. So you went to school, tired, your class. Still, during lunchtime, you would take out the app. You would open it. You would read a little more. You would see what the comment said. You would laugh. You would comment again. Sometimes you would even get likes, a lot of likes on your comment. You would build the community in that way. Have internet friends. Meet those friends virtually on Instagram. Be friends with those people, even to this day. And sometimes, maybe you would write your own story. You would begin your Wattpad career. You would make your own cover. You PixArt. What was that font thing? Fonta, I think, to see the perfect fonts, find images, and you become a writer on Wattpad. Sometimes you would even start making money from it, become a Wattpad creator, start making a few $100 every few months. Still money, not oh my gosh, not rich, but still something. And if you're like me, a Black girl who did all these things, or at least some of these things, you know of the phenomenon that was BWWM, Black women, white men romance novels. And if you're like me, you even wrote in that genre. I think if you're a Black girl who read on Wattpad, this is how your experience kind of went. You started out, you got the app again, like everyone else, downloaded the app, and some of the biggest books were Chasing Red. What was the book that was adapted recently? Before. So those were some of the books that I remember right now. And there were just a bunch of, I guess How the Girl Met the Popular Guy. Those type of books. You know what I mean? I don't know the title. I don't remember the titles. Those were some of the books that we were met with. And it was usually something of, you read those books, right? They were there. They were available. A lot of people liked them, so you read those books. I don't know how it happened, but somehow we would find ourselves slowly, if you're like me, and I think that this experience is not singular to just me, we would find ourselves to the quote-unquote Black side of Wattpad. And those, I think, were in sections, of course, and maybe I'll do a video exploring, although I don't remember all of it. But the Black side of Wattpad consisted with quote-unquote urban books. And I've read, in my time, I read a couple of those urban books, they had their own flair, let's say, but they featured, Black main cast, or, at least a Black female lead. And usually they were set in more, I guess, quote unquote, urban areas. So I guess the main cast would be Black, and usually dealing with some themes that are, mostly understood by Black audiences, with references to Black life, Black things, and two Black people falling in love. Some of these books would include gang activities, especially, featuring Black gangs and things like that. So kind of violence and some of these darker themes, I want to say. So you would read a couple of those, and then there was a time, and I don't know how this happened. I don't even know if it was a time period, but as a part of the Black side of Wattpad, there would also be the BWWM side, Black women, white men side. So these romance books would feature Black women, as the little tag would be, Black women and them falling in love with white men. And that's kind of the types of books these were. These books were not only limited to Wattpad, of course. I think the BWWM started outside of Wattpad, I'm pretty sure, with actual, published books that were featuring interracial relationships. I think Wattpad is where I first encountered these type of books, and a lot of people, Gen Zers, Gen Z girls, Black girls, encountered these type of books. And yeah, I just want to talk about them with someone, because again, I don't have friends that were very deep into this, and I want to reminisce, or like I look a little bit at the bad, the good, the bad, the ugly of these books, and just, I don't know, man, look back, especially as someone who was a writer. And I want to expose myself, because I did at a time, not to toot my own horn, I had 4 stories, I believe, and one of them had reached 1 million, and I became a Wattpad creator, I think, maybe before the one reached 1 million. And I was making a little dough. That's just some of the accolades I had as a Wattpadder. And now I'm just an adult that has this insane lore. Not insane, but like a lore that I'm sure it's actually kind of not as more universal than you would think. But this is all to say, let's dive in. I think the good is that a lot of people got their start in reading, especially a lot of women, because it just happened that most people who read romance are women. So most people who were on Wattpad were women. There were men, of course. Fantasy was also very big, and men tend to read fantasy. There were boys, of course, on Wattpad as well. But because Wattpad skewed younger as well, it was a lot of younger girls. A lot of people began reading with Wattpad, and that's a good thing, right? People got into reading, people got into writing, storytelling became a thing for a lot of people. To this day, there's a lot of readers, big readers, like in book spaces all over the internet, who really praise Wattpad as the start to their reading journey. And I think that's a good thing, reading is good. Another good thing, I think, especially when looking at, again, the Black side of Wattpad, I think, was the community that was formed. I think that happened all over for Wattpad. It wasn't just, of course, the Black side of things, but I noticed, being a part of the Black Wattpad community, that community was strong. I have friends that I still follow on social media who were readers of mine. I think some that I met with while just commenting on something, then we started chatting, and then of course he's like, oh, what's your IG, and then we exchanged those IGs, and I've talked to them via text, virtually, often, or like every so often. And that's good. I think it's always good to build community and build just some type of rapport with people, especially over the internet, where horrible things can happen, but good can also happen. So community, there's still probably a lot of people who know some of their maybe close friends, even that they met maybe in real life from Wattpad, from those moments. And that was good. That was a good thing. Another good thing was looking especially at the type of novels, so BWWM novels, or even urban novels, the Black women were being pursued, right? So again, us Black girls who are reading these novels quite young, we are seeing Black girls being pursued in novels. We are seeing Black female leads, maybe not necessarily on screen as much, but Wattpad gave the agency to the actual people, and we could see the things we wanted to see, right? We could see the things that we wanted, like Black girls being pursued, being loved out loud, all these things. So I think it really gave agency, and that's a good thing too. It gave agency to what felt like the masses, and what came out was a lot of what folks wanted to see, especially at a time, at a social media time, and that's maybe something I should talk about as well, where there was a lot of especially hate towards especially darker skinned Black women. There was a lot of like talks about, oh, dark skin this, light skin versus dark skin, whatever. Wattpad, at least for me at that moment, was a very encouraging thing to just, I'm like, oh wait, that's a Black girl main character, she has a Black family, all these things, and she's being loved out loud, and she's being pursued, all those things. It was just a little encouraging. I think it was just nice to see. Now let's get into the bad, right? There's some bad, especially when talking about BWWM books. Boom. I think some of the bad, of course, I think reading romance books is fine, right? I'm a big believer that, there's some things that are just not age appropriate. I believe in age appropriate things. There were some things that were happening on Wattpad, and especially in these books, that were not very age appropriate. Some things were being written by older people. I know that now, but there are some things, including some of the things I was writing, that were not very age appropriate, that I had kind of taken from some of the books I'd even written. I don't know the ages of the people who wrote some of those books. Things that were happening, especially when it comes to maybe sexual scenes that were within those books, were being, again, exposed to the masses, and there was no way of checking or the checks and balances in terms of, wait, is this person maybe over 18? It was kind of a free-for-all. And some people might say it's not such a bad thing, but for me, my opinion, I don't know how conducive it is, how good it is for a 12-year-old to learn about some of these explicit things via a book that another 12-year-old wrote on Wattpad, and kind of learning how romance should be. Not necessarily romance, but maybe how even, again, some of these explicit things are versus how they are in reality. Maybe, I just think that, again, when you expose young folks to things a little too early, it can shape their view of how some of these things are in reality, when that's not necessarily the case. That's not necessarily maybe a good thing. I think the masses having control is great, but also not that many checks and balances. I think when it comes to especially Black women, white men books, I think it also created, in a way, this, and look, hear me when I say this, there is this entire imaginary on the internet of, white men love Black women better, not better, but differently. It's like getting a white man is kind of a status symbol in a way. And I think that because of the things that were happening on social media, which I'll dive into when I talk about the ugly, because of some of the things that were happening on social media at that time, in a way, Black women, white men books were an escape. But I think that they were not necessarily a healthy escape. They were not necessarily maybe a real escape. And I think they lent themselves to kind of place a band-aid on the issue that was bigger than just Black women being loved by white men. I think it was an issue of identity. Again, I'll dive into that. And I think that sometimes these books can, at least to me, in my own experience, they served as portraying something that was not necessarily so, oh wait, Black men are not, at least it seems like the popular culture talk at the moment was Black men are not going for Black women, especially dark-skinned Black women. Okay, well, white men are. That felt like the resolution of these books, and it felt good. Like, let me be honest to myself, it felt good to read these books and to write these books, and somehow kind of it felt like I was getting, not revenge, that's not a good word, but getting kind of like compensated for, like, okay, well, at least there's white men. And then I would go to these white schools, which I was a part of, and that wasn't necessarily the reality, and I knew that it wasn't, but it felt still, I guess, good to be able to write about it while the reality is not that necessarily true, right? In reality, most Black men still date Black women, and in reality, most white men date white women, right? There is interracial dating, but it's not something as much as these books portray to be. And I'm not saying that these books are bad because of that, not at all. I'm saying that, again, these were young minds. We were young minds. I was a young mind, and I think it shaped it in a specific way that I don't necessarily think is healthy. I think it shaped it in a way to see, in a way, being loved by a white man as a prize, and being loved by a white man as a solution to, the problem of Black men seemingly not being interested or going for Black women. That's what I'm saying. So at that time in popular culture, I know in the early 2000s, maybe 2010s, 2015, 2018, my time on Wattpad was maybe 2015 to 2018. Let's say around that time, I think. So I was like, 12, 13. I had social media, which it's a whole thing of its own, but having social media, being able to just see how at that time, for whatever reason, there was a weird fascination or hate targeted towards darker skinned black women. I think a lot of comedians made videos about, there was even this weird thing of light skin versus dark skin in a humorous way to be like, oh, light skinned men are this, dark skinned men are that, whatever. But also there was this weird hate towards black women. Like, it was just a weird, especially darker skinned, again, black women. And a lot of black women felt this. Like, a lot of black women who were on social media at this time felt this thing that I believe I've worked to, praise God, of not being, or feeling like not being not like we're not chosen, like not feeling like being loved, not feeling loved by black men. And I think, I don't want to be like Black Panther resolved all these things, but I do think that around the time that Black Panther came out, things were starting to shift, probably before that, but whatever. But there was more of a resurgence of, you know, okay, black, being empowered by blackness and all these things. But that's all to say that the time before, it felt like there was just some type of weird colorism going on, especially on social media. There was just a deep colorism going on social media. We, the black girls who were on Wattpad, again, you guys maybe have a different experience from mine, but I do think that there are some connections between my experiences and, you know, everyone's experiences. I think glamorization then of relationships between white men and black women, and I don't think that that's for good reason, kind of, right? It's for emotional reasons of what happened. I think even interracial YouTube was at its height. I know of a few black women, especially that were with white men, their YouTubes were doing great because I think black women were looking for who's going to love us. And in that process, maybe we lost a little bit of, okay, how are we going to love ourselves through this? And maybe looking for who's going to love us isn't necessarily going to solve the solution of you not even loving yourself. So these books, in some ways, for me, they had a weird, when I look back, they placed a weird emphasis on this white man as if he was in some ways the savior, right? In some ways, he was the white man in shining armor. These books varied in the way that they were done, but I know that some of the ones I read, there was a, I don't want to say weird emphasis of the guy being white, but some of them were, like, there was a contrast. I think one of these books, I don't want to call anyone out, but it was even called Oreo, right? I guess blackness, whiteness was, it was a central focus. In the ones I wrote, because of this, because I felt that weirdness, I actually didn't emphasize race at all, which I don't think is a good thing as well. I think de-emphasizing race as well is just also to say that, like, okay, does race not even play a part in this relationship? Which within an interracial relationship, I would believe, I've never been in one, but I would believe that it would. I can imagine race playing, not maybe an issue, but playing a part in the relationship and how you can even deal with some things and how you can even relate with each other, right? At least for me, it would. I don't think it would be like, oh my gosh, a deal breaker. It would just be a thing of, oh no, they were just having some conversations, understanding each other better. Okay, this is how I move. But I think in my books, at least, I de-emphasized racism or race even to begin with. And that maybe wasn't necessarily good. I think they made it so I didn't deal with the root issue. Deal with the root issue of, man, it hurts to even think that, like, oh man, black men don't love black women, or there's this kind of hate going on of, I'd rather date a white woman or whatever, any other race but black woman. Like, there's this pain that's associated with that. And instead of dealing with, like, okay, what does this mean for me? Like, does it mean that I need validation from external validation in this way to feel like I'm valued and all these things? Does this mean that I view an entire group of men in this way? I've seen comments from people, even I think mostly millennials, who were at this time of the internet really shamed and really, like, you know, I'll put some of those comments here, like, they've said even that they don't view black men the same anymore. They don't even date black men because of it. So I think there was a mass exodus in a way of black women not dating black men, which I'm not saying like those women should. I'm not making a statement on that. I'm making a statement on the fact that these books, I think for me, made it so I wouldn't deal with the root issue. And I felt that even when reading these books, it felt like, you know, when you're eating like candy and it's like, it's, you know, the candy is good itself, but it's like you're not dealing with the fact of like, okay, I actually need to eat real food. And what I mean by that is that it wasn't going to satisfy. It wasn't going to make up for anything. Like, ultimately, it's not. I had to deal with the issue of what that brought out of me, knowing that there are some black men who think black women are somehow, there are some black men who won't date black women for whatever reasons they have, and they think black women are somehow, and black women are this, black women are that. There is a sect of men who is like that. That's true. What does that say about how I feel about myself? Does it have to say something about how I feel about myself and how I move in the world? And I think for me, that answer, I didn't want the answer to be yes. I wanted to resolve that. So I knew that. But I knew that in some ways those books were giving me a view of the world of like, oh, at least there's black men. I mean, at least there's white men who love black women. And there's this weird thing that even happened when the pasta and lobster trend, if you were on TikTok at that time, of like, oh yeah, white men love black women better, and kind of wanting to place the burden of our, like, how we feel internally about ourselves. Still, it's not resolving it, but like, oh no, but there's a different type of men who will love you, and they love you better actually. And it's like, oh, actually these white men, actually they want black women so bad. It's like they're interested in them, and it's like, but that's not, if we look at the numbers, that's not necessarily true, and that's not going to resolve anything. It's really not. How someone else feels about you ultimately will not solve any of the insecurities that you have internally. It's something you have to deal with internally.
The way that I'm genuinely embarrassed of the black community, specifically black women, we need to stop. Why is every single comment on that video asking if he likes black women? Do you know how that makes us look? Do you understand how that makes us look? This is embarrassing. 1, he's not gonna date you, and 2, he's not gonna date you. Ever since 2020, there was like a flip that switched, and now black women are like held by the neck by white men. Why are we constantly seeking validation from pasta and lobster? Why is this your ultimate form of validation? I think that part of this phenomenon comes from the fact that even black men, like our own community, will like dog on us. But we need to realize that like this is not going to change if we look to white men of all people. But they are aware of your desperation and your need for validation. So on TikTok, they know to dangle that validation in your face and then pull it right away because it's not actually real. If we continue acting like nobody fucks with us, no one will continue to fuck with us. It is not our fault. Like, this whole situation is obviously a product of racism, but we cannot keep acting like this.
I think some of the ugly also came from some of the ways that these books portrayed some of the white men. Sometimes you would encounter the type of white man that was very, the white men that were very, how do you say this? Like, we know the cool white guy, right? The one that's like, oh, actually, I think there was a book. Oh my gosh, I just got like a thing. There was a book in which, like, the N-word, but it was a W instead. Like, they called, wait, I just unlocked the memory. I'm gonna have to see if I can find this book. But it was like, yeah, WIGGA. And I was like, wait, what? WIGGA. And it's like, huh? I think, was that the title of the book? But it's like, yeah, that was because he was a cool white guy. And I think that, like, I don't know, there's something sinister. No, there's something quite sinister. There's something a little sinister about, like, a black girl writing a book with a white man that is essentially a black guy, or at least is a tropified version. I don't know why I have to do that. Tropified version of what he believes blackness to be. I don't know. There's something quite sinister about that. Yes. Yeah, that's all I can say. But there was a lot of that happening. At least there was the book I just mentioned. I promise this is not something I made up. I didn't dream this. There was a book like that. And if you know that book, I'm literally not calling out the author. Shout out to the author, young black girl author. Shout out to you. But there was something interesting about that. You know the thing of, like, when people say, oh man, this black guy doesn't even want to date black girls, but low key, he's looking for black girl things in white women or in other non-black women. That's what that gives. Of, like, I don't know, man, trying to put the things that you like from a race, which, again, don't even go for everyone in that race, but what you believe a race to be, the way that's racism, like the things you believe, the stereotypes from a race into a person, and making them, but they're white, so there's still that power structure to it. Isn't that kind of very sinister? I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, that was some of the things that were going on. That was some of the ugly. And I think, speaking and being vulnerable, right, in dealing with my hurt, because there was a time that those were the only books I wanted to read, right, because they were feeding something, and that candy of, like, it wasn't feeding my hunger, but it was it's a little something. It wasn't feeding the true insecurity, but it was a little something. Mind you, I wasn't experiencing any of those things in real life. And I think a lot of people who read these books could relate with that. And I'm not saying that there's no white men who are going for black women. Of course, that's a lie. That's not true. I am saying that the books, because I was a young mind, definitely shaped how we viewed what would happen in the future and how we viewed relationships between white men and black women that wasn't necessarily happening in the real world. And I was in a lot of spaces with white men, and I don't know if it was disappointing that that didn't happen. It was just like, oh, okay, I guess. But for some people, it could have been disappointing. Like, wait, so this thing that's supposed to happen, why is that not happening? Is it me? Am I the problem? My own experiences were interesting because I knew that I had to deal with the root issue at some point, and that's when I kind of stopped reading. Like, that was only the books I was reading. I stopped just reading I guess on Wattpad in general. I think that's when I was able to deal with some of those issues and realizing, like, at the end of the day, of course, no one, whether they like you or they don't, can or should impact how you feel or how you move, show up in the world, how you feel about yourself, and how you even present yourself or who you even like. I think you can still say, well, there are some black men who don't check for me, but I am still someone who is interested in, of course, the black men who are checking for me, right? I'm not now going to be like, oh man, all black men are this way, and I'm going to just, face on white men because white men treat me better. I think you can say, no, there's some black men who don't like me, some white men who don't like me, I like, and I'm interested in the ones who do like me. And I know, and I'm sure that there's still people. I'm a loving person, someone who's lovable. And there are people in the world who still do love me. Oh, bit of technical difficulties. Please, if the thing has shifted a bit, if the camera angle and everything is shifted and it's wonky, please, I'm sorry. Then she's looking back at her computer and typing something into the document, talking about an idea on how we can structure the presentation to make it more succinct, yet rich when we're relying the information. What the heck was I writing? Wait, hold up. Anyways, as she talks, I only catch a few of the words she's saying. The entire time, my eyes are focused on her lips, her nose, her eyes. Only one thought keeps sounding in my mind, growing larger and larger the longer she talks. You have to stay away from this girl, Gage. She's dangerous, man. Very, very. I used to curse. Sorry, probably things have changed, my hair, whatever. But thank you so much for watching this video. And if you're like me and you're on Wattpad during this time and you have different thoughts, maybe you think some of the things I shared, you don't really see it, please comment down below, like, comment, subscribe, share. And yeah, looking forward to making more videos. Thank you.